Come and take it. Come and take it. Come and take it. Come and take it. Come and take it.
That sounds great. Good morning, everybody. Ted Nugent is back on DrydenWire, and our very special guest today, Friday, March 17th, 2023. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and we are streaming today's live chat on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. So however you may be watching, welcome and thank you for joining us. Ted, good morning. It's been almost a year and a half since you were on last. How are you, brother?
I'm doing so good, Bennett, stupid. Did you miss me? We have nothing but an emergency going on. It's a free-for-all. It's truth, logic, and common sense at the end of a crowbar. I can be your cocked, locked, and ready to rock the Glock around the clock. Dr. Spock, Mother Teresa with firepower. Ben, that's why you love me. One of the many reasons, right?
Yeah, we can't go a year and a half in between shows. You're just the most fun guest we've ever had, by far. No one's even close. So how it has
if
been.
You're not having fun with me. You're weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it has been a year and a half. So what have you been up to? What's new in your life?
Ben, I'm wrapping up. I just wrapped up the white-tailed deer season that stopped on March 1st here in Texas. If my effervescence squirts through this technology and drowns you, it's because I had the greatest hunting season of my life with a new record in 2022, Detroit Muscle, which I am your Detroit Muscle barbecue daddy. The greatest tour of my life, the music with Greg Smith on bass, Jason Hartless on drums. I'm the luckiest guitar player in the world. The audiences, nobody's feet touched the ground. It was just ferocious, so intense, so much fun. The music has a life of its own. People singing these songs. Up there in the beautiful Wisconsin wilds, Fred Bear, the song Fred Bear is still the #1 requested song 34 years later. The connection I have with the best people in the world. I train with Delta Force and the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets and the Army Rangers. I'm having so much fun. You know, I don't know how other people gauge the happiness in their life, but mine is a ballistic coefficient. I have a ballistic measurement to my happiness between the hunting, the outdoor lifestyle, the rock and roll, and certainly my family. My family is so cool. They're so healthy. They're so smart. They're so hardworking. They're so cocky. They're so funny. My dogs, we had the best duck hunting season of my life. And I don't know however you can measure happiness better than Happy, Sadie, and Coco bringing 3 mallards back at once. So, you know, I still fight like I dare to experiment in this We the People experiment self-government. So I've got the liberals. The Michael Moore fan club is really, really getting more and more upset with me every day. In fact, if I want to give you an indicator of how wonderful my life is, you can watch Nancy Pelosi's eyebrows migrate to the back of her skull, and I'm responsible for that. So I put truth, logic, and common sense on the end of a crowbar, and I whoop it upside people's heads every day, but with aplomb and love. Can you feel the love, Ben? I mean, I have so much
I don't
love.
know.
By the way, I had a bumper crop of middle fingers this year, so if anybody out there is short on middle fingers, I can have them airlifted.
Well, Nancy Pelosi isn't, she's not the speaker anymore.
She's never been anything anymore. She's a scam artist. She's a criminal. Why didn't the U.S. Marshals tackle her when she was ripping up my State of the Union address? That's a felony. It's on film. We could go into that abyss of insanity if you'd like. But what a horrible, horrible human being you have to be on the left, to be a Democrat, to open our borders and import communist Chinese chemical warfare through fentanyl and methamphetamine, supporting the Mexican drug cartels, killing Americans. I mean, I just went through the list of the supreme happiness, and now I'm delving into the list of supreme heartbreak. So yes, I have a foot in both camps. There's good, there's bad, the ugly. I maximize the good, but I fight like a son of a bitch against the bad and the ugly. And everybody knows what the bad and the ugly is. It's Democrat, it's liberalism, it's Antifa, it's Black Lives Matter, it's Janet Proto Saywicks. It's people who don't believe in law and order, who are engineering recidivism, that are guaranteeing victims of violent crimes as they keep letting violent criminals out. I'll stop there and take a breath, Ben, and you can give a comment if you'd like.
Well, I wrote down, so I literally, because, these shows are organic, but I always need to have like one topic. I can't imagine you and I running out of things to talk about. But I found yesterday, actually spoke to the person who was a part of this as well. Your Nuge, the nightly Nuge, which streams, I caught up a little bit in you and Keith Marks. And I talked to him yesterday, first time ever. He was a really impressive person. It was great talking to him. I think actually he's going to be on the show in like a week from now because he was so fascinating. So you do this on every night. And I went to one. I didn't watch this one. I skipped it because this was just aired last night. And the kind of description was Wisconsin has an election on April 4th that could bring an end to hunting and gun rights as we know them. Now, you may or may not recall, I don't hunt. Perfectly fine. Other people do. But, for me, not so much. The whole field dressing thing and a whole bunch of other things is just, but it's great that other people do. So again, I didn't want to go through and listen to it because I wanted to hear what you wanted to say. So how in the world is the April 4th election? I'm assuming that, of course, is the Supreme Court race here in Wisconsin. Maybe I shouldn't assume, but I assume so. How does that have anything to do with ending hunting and gun rights as we know them?
Well, because Janet Protocol-Saywicks is on record that she would end hunting. She would end the Second Amendment. She would infringe. She would not let people keep and bear arms. She's got a list of so-called assault weapons that includes squirrel rifles and 30-30 lever action deer rifles. She's on record. She's a Joe Biden gangster. She's against everything that brings quality of life in Wisconsin. Let me make it perfectly clear. You referenced the nightly Nuge. Well, that Nugent's got a big mouth, man. Why doesn't he just stick to guitar playing and shut up about politics? I'll tell you why, numbnuts. Because I'm experimenting in self-government. And the people who we elect to adhere to their sacred oath to the U.S. Constitution are violating their oath every minute of every day. And they're ruining our lives. And we might be comfortable right here doing a nice little chit-chat, Ben. But meanwhile, people are getting raped and carjacked and murdered and shot and shoved in front of train tracks. And their lives are being destroyed because in those jurisdictions where you're not allowed to have a firearm on your person, which, by the way, here's a little something that non-educated out there might want to consider. Keep means it's mine. You can't have it. Bear means I have a couple on me right now and they're loaded. I don't need paperwork from my First Amendment. My First Amendment is good on planet Earth without a permit, without a license, and without government-issued paperwork. Are you with me so far, Ben?
I am with you. I don't own a gun.
I have a First Amendment. You have a First Amendment. While you are alive on planet Earth, it's a right from God. It's a self-evident truth that the Founding Fathers wrote down. It's a middle finger to the King Georges and the Joe Bidens and the Janet Protocol-Saywicks in the world who would deny us the right to contest, ask questions, and demand accountability from our elected employees. Let's move on to the Second Amendment now, shall we? I have the right to keep and bear arms to protect my sacred gift of life from God, and my right to keep and bear arms is good on planet Earth without a permit, without a license, and without paperwork. It's from God. It's already been infringed, and this Janet gal is against that. Meanwhile, Dan Kelly is for the right to keep and bear arms, and all the victims of the engineered recidivism, and that's what we're living in, an absolute scourge of engineered recidivism. 100% of violent crimes are committed by guys who have committed those violent crimes, and our wonderful court system, our anti-just system, our prosecutors and our judges keep letting rapists out, murderers out, stabbers out, carjackers out, child molesters out. And you know what you do when you release those kind of people, Ben? Here, let me answer that question for you. They do it again. And
Typically.
The judge knew he was going to do it again. The prosecutor knew he was going to do it again. The parole board knew he was going to do it again. And meanwhile, the blood and the destroyed lives are on the hands of our anti-justice system. And that's what Janet Protocol-Saywicks believes in. She's a Joe Biden guy. And Dan Kelly wants bad guys either kept in cages or hanging from a rope, preferably. If you molest a child, I'd like to see your neck snap. If you carjack an innocent mother on the side of the street again, I'd like to see your neck snapped. I don't believe in repeat offenders. I believe in dead offenders. And how about, Ben, you invite anybody, all these big, maybe somebody's got some credentials from a university that would like to debate the guitar player. Remember, kids, I wrote Wango Tango and I meant it, but I dare anybody to debate me whether I have the right to keep and bear arms on earth while I walk this earth. I have that right. And by the way, Ben, for all my life, I've exercised that right. And the victims of violent crime are a direct result of the Joe Biden gangsters who keep letting violent monsters out to destroy human lives. And that's what Janet Proto-Kasewicz believes in, and Dan Kelly would put an end to it. Wisconsin, I know you people. I've been rocking and rolling and hunting in Wisconsin since 1965. Good, hard-working American families who believe in safe streets and safe neighborhoods and the right to defend themselves from released rapists. And Dan Kelly would bring you back to the real Wisconsin, because if you don't vote for the constitutionalist, it's that simple. The Constitution is a self-evident truth. I could have wrote it, and I didn't go to college. I was too busy learning stuff. And so if people in Wisconsin really want to have safe streets, and if you want to have the right to keep and bear arms, which has nothing to do with hunting, but if you want to manage wolves so they don't decimate the deer herd, because wolves don't buy license, they don't buy gas, they don't buy food, they don't buy lodging, they don't buy permits, they don't buy sporting goods, they don't buy beer, they don't buy ice. If you let the wolves destroy your deer herd, there is no economy for conservation. Tell me you know this. So the bottom line is Dan Kelly would stand up for all these self-evident truths and traditional values. And Janet is a goon of the Joe Biden gangster family in Wisconsin. If you don't vote in Dan Kelly, and people say, nah, you don't even live here, mind your own business. America is my business. Wisconsin is part of America. I'm going to come back to Wisconsin and hunt. I'm going to come back to Wisconsin and rock and roll. So those elected employees work for me. So I want to make sure they're constitutionalists. Whoa, what a radical. Ben, what do you think of that soliloquy?
Well, what's fascinating is, again, not being a hunter, which is, I know, weird, being in northwest Wisconsin, rural northwest Wisconsin, not being a hunter, is that this whole election seems to be, the driving force behind this seems to be the topic of abortion. This is the first time, literally, I've heard that this is also regarding hunting and gun rights. I have not heard that up until now. So
well, there is a food pyramid, and then there is a self-evident truth-based God-given rights pyramid. And I got to tell you, the profile, the definitive profile of God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, Law and Order, all that really radical stuff. It really is epitomized in the licensed hunting families of Wisconsin. These are hardworking people that obey the law, pay their taxes, bust their ass. And when it gets to the abortion, it's the same thing as gun rights. It's the same thing as hunting rights. If you don't have the right to scientifically manage wildlife, they become a liability overnight, and more of our tax dollars will be raped and pillaged to pay USDA hunters to kill the animals we're not allowed to kill after they become overpopulated because we weren't allowed to properly and adequately sustain yield-based science harvest these animals. And when it comes to the abortion rights, I was wondering if anybody out there listening, has anyone been asked if you can take our tax dollars and pay Planned Parenthood to slaughter people? Because babies are people. And now when Gavin Newsom, which is a Joe Biden guy, which is a Janet Protasewicz guy, when he passed a law that you can kill the child as it's being born, you can stab it in the back of the head and suck out its brains. That's legal in California. And Gavin Newsom got a standing ovation. That's Janet Protasewicz. That's what she believes in. And I didn't authorize my money to go to the Ukraine or to pay the Taliban our military hardware or to kill babies at Planned Parenthood. But without our permission, the liberals and the Democrats are taking our hard-earned tax dollars and murdering babies as they're being born. Find me someone who can rationalize that. Find me someone that goes, hey, I'm for that. That's a good idea. That's a moral idea. See what I'm saying? That's what it comes to. And if a young lady gets pregnant and doesn't want to have a child, should she have the right to have an abortion? All right. I don't think so. It's a living being. What happened to maternal instincts? What happened to motherhood? What happens to respect for life? But if she's going to do it, don't charge me, and don't do it the day the baby is born. You know, you want to debate me on that? So you think you can stab a baby in the back of the head? Why don't you just shoot him on his bike on the way to school? It's the same thing.
Yesterday, maybe it was 2 days ago, yesterday, the day before, Republicans, at least in Wisconsin, they had put out a kind of a proposal or an idea that, okay, we can kind of work somewhere in the middle here, and they something regarding exceptions for rape and incest, and I think there was more to it, also like the mother's health, but I think in the first trimester, etc., whatever. And I'm glossing over this.
Those points.
I'm glossing over this, the details of that, because Governor Evers has said, unless it is full everything, I'm not interested. So my question to you is, why is it just seems to me, outside looking in, I'm not Republican or Democrat, I just outside looking in, it seems as though one side, in this case, it would be mostly Democrats, but I don't want to put them all in the box because maybe there are Republicans who are pro-abortion. That's fine. But it seems like everything has to be okay, but there's no middle ground. Why do you think that is? Like, well, okay, we'll at least take this. It's something. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever met a Republican that's pro-abortion. They go, yeah, I really like abortions.
I haven't met any myself, no.
But what I think what you're talking about, believe me, I hang out. You know, people think I'm a radical. Yeah, I am a radical. I experiment in self-government. That's the most radical thing in the history of the human experience, is to dare to defy the kings and the emperors and the tyrants and Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau and his dad Fidel.
Oh boy.
See, I can bring levity even to painful information. I've never met anybody that goes, yeah, I really like abortions, man. I can't wait to see that baby's guts hanging out. I love when you pull his brain out of the back of his head. I've never met anybody like that, except when I see the Democrats protesting in New York City, where they're actually saying the things I just condemned. But yes, there is middle ground. Of course, if a woman is raped, and she, for whatever reason, it's her temple. It is her temple, but there's a new temple growing in her temple. So I've always said it's up to the individual lady, which, by the way, I just make a really radical statement here right now, because I'm so racist and I'm so homophobic that I thought I would mention that men can't get pregnant. So we don't have to worry about men getting abortions. I thought I'd just mention that.
Okay.
Sane world we're in right now. So when a woman gets pregnant, because that's the only thing that can get pregnant, when a woman gets pregnant, and for whatever reason, between her medical guidance and her spiritual guidance, they decide she doesn't want to be a mother. She's not ready. I've had kids that I wasn't ready to raise, and we put them up for adoption. Way back in the 60s. And so I understand the psychological warfare that goes on when all of a sudden an individual is now responsible for the existence of another human. That's quite an emotional journey. I agree to that. And I would never interfere with someone else's emotional journey until the kid is responding to stimuli in the womb and his fingers are moving and you're already thinking of names for him and what color his bedroom is going to be. So if a woman gets pregnant, see, I'm talking campfire pragmatism here. If a woman is raped or she doesn't want the child, and if she's a responsible individual and she decides early on, it's never a clump of cells, it's already life upon conception. But I'm not going to interfere, just like I wouldn't force you to wear a mask. I wouldn't force you to get an experimental shot. It's your sacred temple. You can make that decision on your own. That's why I'm against these tyrannical pricks that think they can force me to wear a mask. It doesn't work, and have an experimental shot. Somebody comes towards me with an experimental shot, I'll give them a shot that's already been experimented with in 10 millimeters. My point being, See, even that vicious statement was funny. So anyhow, my point is that if someone decides to have an abortion for incest, rape, their individual decision, I think there has to be limits to how long that baby is being developed. And if they do want an abortion, I ain't paying for it. You caused this, or even in incest, I suppose in an incest and rape where there was a victim of violence, I suppose society should help to some degree. You understand the quagmire here? So yes, there is middle ground. You see, I'm moving towards middle ground, aren't I?
It seems like it. And I guess that was literally my original question was, it seems as though there are a lot that seem to be on the right, like yourself, who I can find middle ground. I'm open to. And it was, I just don't really see that other side. I'm not banging on them. I'm just, and that's fine. You're 100% all for it. If that's what you believe and that's what you think is right, who am I to say that you're wrong? It's not necessarily what I would agree with, but that's okay, right?
But there are instances, Ben, where you can say you're wrong. If you think you can break into my house and raid my refrigerator at night, I'm going to think you're wrong and I'm going to shoot you.
Right. All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
Decisions based on conduct. But when it comes to this, I would propose that there's no more traumatic, emotional, spiritually testing moment in life than when a woman becomes pregnant. You and I can only contemplate what that must be like. Now, I've got 7 wonderful children, and I've got a dozen wonderful grandkids, and I don't know what your family structure is, and I'll just go ahead and explain mine. When I'm taking my grandkids fishing, and when my daughter is not well and I'm holding her in my arms and doing everything I can to make them well, or if they're facing difficulties in life, and as their dad, I put my heart and soul into assisting them in moments of life. The human connection is sacrosanct. You can't even begin to really describe the emotions of love and caring and paternity and guidance and nurturement and assistance in difficult times. Well, when that baby's growing inside that woman, it's never going to be that helpless. And I would like to think that empathy and compassion, that's why when I hear the term pro-abortion, I don't think you have to be some kind of savage devil to be pro-abortion, to like it. And that's what these protesters are doing. And let's get right down to the ugly side. As a journalist, I suspect you're a journalist because we're doing journalism.
No, not really, actually, but
you're a guy you sound like a guy that cares. I like you.
Yep.
You seem to have an empathy and understanding of diversity and other people's opinions and desires and dreams, and I do too. I really do. But when Planned Parenthood is caught selling body parts of aborted fetuses for profit, it's over. You don't get any more tax dollars. That's not abortion. That's just vicious, demonic criminality, and they've been caught. So why would any tax dollars continue to go to Planned Parenthood so they can profit from selling dead babies? So it does get into that outrageous element, and that's one of the considerations when we're talking about where our tax dollars are going. They go, Planned Parenthood is healthcare. Well, they slaughter millions of babies, and mostly black babies, because Margaret Sanger wanted to kill black babies, and the Planned Parenthood was created to kill black babies. So who's going to give tax dollars to that? And I'll tell you who. The Joe Biden, Janet Prokotokasewicz gangsters, that's who will do it. So it's not about pro-abortion or anti-abortion. It's about life and love and empathy and caring and individual choice. But if I smoke and get cancer, why should you pay my doctor bills? I don't think you should. I think if I'm that stupid, I should take care of myself. And I'm not saying that women that get pregnant are stupid, but it's their individual lives that we're talking about and the new life inside of them. Who could possibly say, oh, I'm not pro-life? Are you? Let's just use the words. are, regardless of this scam of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter doesn't care about Black lives. Black Lives Matter is a scam, money-making, gangster operation, terrorist organization, and Antifa is actually pro-fascist. So words have been bastardized, but let's stop and think of the term pro-life. Of course I'm pro-life. I like life. Do you like life, Ben? I think you like life, don't you?
That the Bible. I mean, sorry. So when I said earlier, like, not Republican or Democrat, for me, for us, for my family, God is the highest authority. The Bible is the highest authority. But that's just for us. It's perfectly fine if other people don't want that.
It's most of us.
Yeah, and God tells us that life is the greatest gift He's ever given us, and that's it.
Duh.
But yeah, there's also a lot of, like, the rape and incest that, man, I got a heart. Like, I don't want, that's tough. And those are tough conversations, and that topic alone is like one of the few topics that it isn't just that people have an opinion. They all have very strong opinions. So I think we should be sympathetic to other people's opinions. But it seems as though also, if you have an opinion of pro-life, you're almost canceled. And that's weird. Right?
Weird.
It's but that's just how I feel, and it's okay if you don't agree with me. Just like I don't, fine if you believe in something else, go right ahead.
Well, you say it's okay if you don't agree with me, but the people that don't agree with that are making money by selling baby parts.
Yeah, that's weird.
Organs and it's not just because they happen to have a dead baby because they were pro-abortion. They're doing it to get the baby parts. They're scamming these women and hurting these women. And again, this isn't like a guitar player's hunch. The evidence is everywhere.
Right.
It's not like I wake up in the morning and go, geez, what kind of fantasy can I cling to today? No, I do the research. Engineered recidivism isn't a hunch. The evidence is irrefutable. Even the FBI, back when they used to be trustworthy, remember years ago, back when the FBI was actually a law enforcement agency.
Yeah.
What the hell? All the crime reports from all the studies and all the investigations around the world has come to the conclusion that even the Universal Crime Report of 4 years ago proved that 98% of violent crime was recidivistic. Well, here's an answer. The guitar player can fix that. I, the author of Wang Dang Sweet Poon Tang, can reduce violent crime by 98%, all by myself. If my demands were implemented, the demand would be, don't let them out. Or better yet, when a woman is about to be raped, I'd like her to pull her 38 out and shoot the bastard 6 times in the middle.
That solves some problems.
Never rapes again. I think the best rapist is a dead rapist. I think the best carjacker is a dead carjacker. I think the best home invader is a dead home invader. And again, Ben, invite anybody to debate me, because Pierce Morgan tried it, and I'm still scraping skull tissue from Pierce Morgan off my work boots. Everybody who's tried to debate me has lost, because if you debate me, that means you're for repeat offenders. I'm against repeat offenders, and guess who's on my side? Good people. Guess who's on their side? Bad people.
I want to ask you, we started this with the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. I want to ask you then, obviously you're endorsing or supporting, or you're talking about people should go and vote for Dan Kelly. I want to get to that a little bit more. We'll be right back in 15 seconds after a word from Spooner Health.
Satisfaction surveys and in conversations with patients, they appreciate the fact that staff got to know them. Staff really took their preferences into account, and they just feel grateful that they are being cared for as a person.
To learn more about our services, visit SpoonerHealth.com.
So when you were on last time, you were a part of Hunter Nation, and now I think I've just figured out that Keith Marks is, I think, the founder of, so I just learned that yesterday. So you must still be, and I think when you were on last time, I referred to you as a spokesperson, and you were like, no, Ben, I'm a spokesman.
I'm a spokesman. I'm a spokesman.
I'm just trying to be politically correct. I don't want to offend anybody.
I do. I want to make people think you need to be a person instead of a spokesman or a spokeswoman. I hope they're offended. You know who's offended? The Michael Moore fan club and General Mark Milley. General Mark Milley is the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the U.S. military, and the fat slob can't even do a push-up. He's not in charge of any military, but I digress because I want to insert some really fun stuff while we're tackling this really ugly stuff.
Yeah. Well, by the way, what I haven't heard of or seen Michael Moore on. What does he do now?
He eats.
Come on now. Be nice.
He eats and he exercises his jowls. And I got to tell you, Ben, I hope you can process my overwhelming love, because the Ted Nugent Band is going on tour this year. Jason Hartless on drums and Greg Smith on bass guitar. We're going to play all the love songs, all the greatest love songs in the world. And we're actually doing a benefit for Michael Moore to try to get him some soap and a washcloth.
You're killing me. Moving on.
You got to admit, my caustic nature is really fun.
It is. So 100%. I love every second of it. But I'm just trying to keep the, train on the tracks. So voting, when I was talking to Keith Marks yesterday, he said that he, obviously with you guys doing the nightly Nuge, and a lot of it is, he was talking about having hunters in the role hunters could or should be playing in voting. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I've been a hunter all my life, and I just think it's the greatest environmental responsibility in the world. And I can give you so many examples. Growing up in Detroit, Lake Erie would catch fire. I mean, every once in a while, there'd be plumes of flames erupting from Lake Erie. I mean, just, hey, look, Lake Erie's on fire. You know, with the hot dogs and the marshmallows. And it was horrific environmental degradation and pollution by the remnants of the Industrial Revolution. How about the words I get out of my mouth, and I never even went to school? My point is, I've been paying attention. So as a hunter, as a duck hunter, as a beaver trapper, and a muskrat trapper, and an otter trapper, and a goose hunter, and a walleye fisherman, a smallmouth bass fisherman, there were no ducks left. There was no wild salary under the water because the pollution had destroyed it. So the hunters and the fishermen and the trappers started sounding the alarm and going, this beautiful body of water is destroyed. There's no life. We need to find out who's polluting it and stop it. Well, by the late 1970s, what used to be a spontaneously combustible Lake Erie had then become, because of citizens experimenting in self-government and tracking down malfeasance and criminality and irresponsibility in the industrial world, Lake Erie became the number one walleye and smallmouth bass fishery in the world as it is today. And the ducks are back, and the beavers are back, and the muskrats and the otters are back. It's great duck hunting. And the reason there's great duck hunting is because duck licenses and duck supplies and the sporting goods and the food and the lodging, the travel, the gas, the hotels, the guides, the outfitters, the taxidermy, the beer, the ice, the restaurants. What a tsunami of economic wealth created by duck hunting and trapping, balancing those numbers so they don't take away from the renewable habitat. My point being is that I love hunting, and hunters are the best environmentalists and the best conservationists. And I find that I share campfires. I have a Sunrise Safaris guiding booking operation for over 40 years now. I guide hundreds of hunters a year. And Ben, they're the greatest families in the world. They earn their own way, they save for a rainy day, and they give to charities, and they earmark family outdoor activities, and there's no better healer than nature. So I love the hunting community, but then I started probing because I saw where the Second Amendment was being infringed, and there were laws that were not about wildlife management, but about making sure the hunter had his bow in a case, and if he didn't, it'd be a $250 fine. And so I started asking, how did this guy get on the game department? He's not even a hunter. He's passing laws against hunting. And I found out, and I'm coming to the answer to your question, but I had to prep it with this. Almost none of the hunters around my deer hunting camps and the campfires, they didn't vote. They just weren't participating. So we did a research with Luke Hilgerman up there in Wisconsin, and Keith Marks started this when we found out. We actually met with President Trump, the then candidate Trump, in 2016, and he knew that I was a hunting guy. He brought me in for all these rallies because he knew if Ted Nugent did a rally in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, the top hunting states in the nation, that I would get these hunters, these blood brothers, these spirit of the wild families to show up. And I said, why don't you ever say hello to the hunters, ask them how their deer season was, relate to them, connect with the hunting family. Go, oh, the hunters don't vote. The then candidate Trump told us hunters don't vote. I go, what are you talking about? And then I found out he was right. So we started Hunter Nation. Please, everybody go to hunternation.org. And it's not about hunting rights. It's about a conservative voting force that references all quality of life, because I think quality of life can be summed up by the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Ten Commandments, and the Golden Rule. And from that is the work ethic, God, family, country, law and order. And so we started having these rallies, and we made a difference. We certainly made a difference in 2016, and we made a difference in many, many jurisdictions where we got hunters to get off their apathetic ass and vote, and not just about hunting rights and gun rights, but about abortion, about border security, about tracking the accountability of our hard-earned tax dollars. I mean, there's so many issues about engineered recidivism, about judges that in Chicago, where guys are caught committing 7 felonies on film with an illegal firearm, and the prosecutor drops all the gun charges but wants to pass new gun laws. You see what we're getting at here? So worse than communism, worse than Democrats, worse than liberalism. It's hard to imagine, but there's something worse than that toxic soup of anti-freedom and slavery. And the worse than all those curses, apathy. People who don't vote and participate in this experiment in self-government. And I referenced earlier about training with Delta Force and the SEALs and the Rangers and the Berets. These military heroes, they are heartbroken that the commander-in-chief, current commander-in-chief, is the enemy of America, and he is, and that the guys came home with no legs for an illegal war in Vietnam, an illegal war in the Gulf, an illegal war in Afghanistan, an illegal war in Iraq. They're shattered that the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, is a traitor who on television said, he's got like a Michael Moore jowl thing going on. Stop and think about this. If there's anything more important that I could say while I'm on with you, Ben, it's this. The commander of the U.S. military, Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley, on television said, and I quote, I called the communist Chinese leader, and I let him know I would call him and warn him what our plans are. Did you see him when he said that?
Mm-mm.
Well, you need to see him when he said that, Ben. You need to be aware of this, that the guy in charge of the United States military said he would call the leader of the communist Chinese military and warn him of our plans.
No, he couldn't have
He
said
said
that.
it on film. So
What?
this goes right to the core of the insanity we're dealing with. And that's why I'm an activist, because I don't want my military commander to be in cahoots with my enemies. And that's what's on. I'll tell you, this Supreme Court vote in Wisconsin, all of that is on the line. Let me tell you another one, Ben. You seem like a young man who seeks wisdom and seeks information.
I
You
try.
want to know stuff. I'm going to tell you something else you don't know, and it's going to blow your mind. Back in Washington and Heller, the U.S. Supreme Court case. Ooh, Supreme. Ooh, they're Supreme. Wow. Yes, whatever you say, Supreme. I don't think so. You know why I don't think so? Because when we passed the self-evident truth in Washington and Heller, that the Supreme Court finally admitted, idiots, that, the Second Amendment is an individual right. People are individuals, can keep and bear arms. Like, duh! So they determined that 5-4, Ben. Follow me. You need to know this. So the dissenting judges of the Supreme Court, 4 of the 9 dissenting judges when the decision came 5-4 that we do have an individual right to keep and bear arms.
First of all, I feel like that should be 9-0, by the way.
Yes,
It just doesn't
but
seem right.
Here's what's going to dazzle you. The dissenting decree said look it up. They used the word self-defense. The dissenting judges against the Second Amendment said, we don't believe there's any language or indicator in the U.S. Constitution or Bill of Rights, particularly the Second Amendment, that authorizes individual Americans to self-defense. Supreme Court black-robed idiots don't think you have a right to defend yourself. Kyle Rittenhouse, George Kelly in Arizona, who's in jail for shooting an armed illegal invader on his ranch. The Supreme Court, hey, Supreme Court, you're not supreme. I'm supreme. No, take that back. God is supreme, and he gave me the supreme right to defend my life, and not only the supreme right, but the moral, spiritual, and intellectual obligation. And 4 Supreme Court justices, I think they're members of the Michael Moore fan club, they decided we don't have the right to defend our lives. Well, I got a bumper crop of middle fingers this year, and I'm going to wrap them up in a bundle, and I'm going to have Mike Tyson take a petrified wood pool cue and ram it up your ass, because I have the right to defend my life, and I have the right to keep and bear arms, so you might want to write that down.
Well, I'll go back and write it down. When it comes to Supreme Court, we've had this conversation on other shows where it was, we just, like law enforcement, you have a job to do, a lot of jobs to do, but ultimately it's to, enforce laws, protect, serve, etc. When looking at a Supreme Court, specifically in this case, Supreme Court race between Judge Janet and Justice Dan, just do, one job, and that is to look at the Constitution and, was it this, was it that? Don't interject and don't put your own personal opinions and feelings on that. First, do you agree with that? Just follow the Constitution. Do you agree with that? For the most part, is that that's what a Supreme Court justice should do?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, with that said, because this is that part that just blows my mind, how you could have, what does your opinion matter? I don't care where they stand on certain issues. Just, you have one job. I know a lot of jobs, but really one job. Just do it and do it well, please. What, though, if that decision or a Supreme Court justice, in this case, Wisconsin Supreme Court, if they didn't rule in the favor of something that you liked, would you no longer support a Dan Kelly of the world if it's, well, no, there was a decision that was made XYZ, and it's, well, I didn't like that answer, but I know they followed everything that they were supposed to do and they did it the right way. Are you still okay with it?
If the Supreme Court adhered to the guidelines of establishing a Supreme Court, which means Sotomayor couldn't be on it because there's laws regarding who's on the Supreme Court, and it specifically states that political activists cannot be on it, Ginsburg. So at this point, like I just said just now, what if it was 5-4 that said I didn't have the right to self-defense? That's weird. There's a higher authority. You said it earlier, and I love you for this, Ben. God gave us these rights. This is an experiment in self-government from a divine intervention against tyranny and kings and emperors. Kings and tyrants and emperors can kiss my free ass. You cannot enslave me. And that's what this experiment in self-government was motivated by, that individuals have specific freedoms, they're self-evident truths, and our founding fathers said, what doesn't the king allow us to do? Let's write it down so we are allowed to do it. Because we got a right from God, and a man cannot intervene with our right to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and freedom of privacy from government jackbooted thugs. Let's write it down in case anybody wanted to play king again. FBI, ATF. Hey, here's a little offshoot for you, just for your entertainment. So there's a bureaucracy that takes care of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
I've heard of them.
Leading causes of death in America. Great job, guys. Why don't we just have alcohol, tobacco, firearms, skateboards, and pantyhose? Because none of those things have anything to do with each other. Why would the government have anything to say about alcohol, which I don't drink, by the way?
Yep.
I'm against getting drunk. I think you get drunk, you're a complete punk. Alcohol, tobacco, I don't smoke. Oh, I have a cigar once in a while. I chew on a Cuban when I shoot my machine gun. It seems to be a Sergeant Rock kind of moment. So alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. So there's a bureaucracy that only deals with those. How are they doing? And I guess you would have to ask, what the flying lip lock does alcohol, tobacco, and firearms have to do with each other? And why would the government intervene with any of those three things? Tobacco and alcohol. Tobacco is an agriculture product. And firearms are a God-given individual right as guaranteed by the Second Amendment. And tobacco and alcohol is just for goofballs who want to throw up and stumble and crash their car and kill innocent people. Not completely. I'm against Coca-Cola. I think my family gets around the Thanksgiving dinner table and everybody has a beer and a glass of wine. That's fine, but nobody starts to drool. We allow consumption, but no drooling. My point is that the Supreme Court currently is not a Supreme Court because some of the members of the Supreme Court have violated the rules of the Supreme Court. It says you can't be a political activist and be a Supreme Court justice. And right now the Supreme Court is infested with political activists, which happens to be on the anti-constitutional side. So my point is to you, let's put it real simple, and I know you're a simple man, and you're smarter than I am. You probably went to school, which is a deterrent to intelligence. But my point is my name, hey, Ben, have you met me yet? My name is Rosa Parks, and that's an ass. I got a nice black ass, and that's a bus, and that's a seat on the bus. And guess where I'm going to sit my beautiful black Rosa Parks ass, Ben? I'm sitting on any seat I choose, but it's against the law. Ooh, you're a law violator. No, I'm not. The law is a violator. You get it? Mm-hmm. We need to go back to Rosa Parks every time. We are smart people. Even the guitar player has a hint of intellect. And I know I have certain rights, whether some man tells me I don't or not. Some things are self-evident. And right now, Uncle Sam is pissing on self-evident. And it goes right back to the First Amendment. So I have fact checkers on social media. Oh. They're going to fact check whether I think Michael Moore needs hygiene. First of all, it's a joke. But even if it wasn't a joke, I have an olfactory indicator that I'm correct. My point being, you see where we're at? The First Amendment is gutted. The Second Amendment is infringed. So why would I obey a Supreme Court who's already violating their own rules? So if there was a real Supreme Court that adhered to their own rules, then I might be able to listen to some of the rules they expound upon. But currently, if they tell me there's a spot on planet Earth I'm not allowed to defend my life, I'm gonna defend my life anyway. I got so many examples, Ben, for years, and I think it's still the law in Wisconsin. In some places, if I see a deer with a leg stuck in a fence and the coyotes have already eaten half of its ham and that deer is suffering violently, I'm supposed to call a guy? By law, I'm supposed to call a guy who's qualified to do the right thing? Hey, I'm Ted Nugent. I'm qualified to do the right thing. I'm going to shoot the deer in the head and put it out of its misery. I'm not going to let it linger and suffer for a elongated period of time because I have to call a DNR guy. What can a DNR guy do that I can't do? By the way, the DNR guy works for me. Just like in Michigan, if the beaver floods my driveway, I'm supposed to call a guy. My name is Ted Nugent. I am the czar of beavers. I am the master of taking care of beaver problems. If a beaver floods my driveway, I'm not calling the DNR. I'm going to shoot the beaver. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
we have become such pussies. We have become such blindly obedient. Here, wear this mask, except the mask doesn't work. Well, you need to wear it anyway. No, I don't. Come over here. I'm going to shove it up your ass. I'm not taking an experimental shot, and it's a weaponized virus, and it's not a vaccine. The CDC finally admitted it's not a vaccine. See what I'm getting at? Why would I obey immorality? That's the FBI. They're obeying immoral laws. The military are obeying immoral laws. Don't obey an immoral law. Well, who's going to decide whether it's immoral or not? We will.
Well, it's easy to say not to obey those, but you could also get arrested for some of these things.
Yeah, well, give it a shot, assholes. I got to tell you. You want to arrest me for shooting my beaver? Bring it on.
All right, so maybe they want to arrest Ted Nugent, but they would arrest, an average Joe and Jane citizen.
Else, grow a pair. Everybody grow a pair. It's time. It's time to push back. I'm Rosa Parks. I'm sitting on any seat I want. I don't give a rat's ass what the law says. The law is immoral. And if anybody would like to debate me and we can get a list of what laws are moral and what laws are immoral, I'll be glad to take you on. Because I'm addicted to self-evident truth, logic, and common sense. And anybody who tries to debate me, you will lose. I will expose you, in fact, you will expose yourself to be a soulless, lying, demented freak.
So with the kind of putting a bow on the wanting hunters to go out, 2016, you met with, or you Donald Trump and others, and with Keith Marks, and Donald Trump had said, hunters don't vote. And that was like an epiphany for you guys. And you're like, holy cow, I think you're right. We need to do something about it. So that was 2016. When did Hunter Nation start? It
started that next year.
Next year. So it's been 5-6 years-ish, somewhere in there. Have you noticed an increase in hunter voting participation? So is it working, or is it just, hey, it sounds good, but
I don't know, Ben, how we can buy all this data, but we bought all the licensed hunter lists and we bought all the voter registration lists. We somehow got, I don't know how we got a hold of them. I didn't do it, but we got the list and we cross-referenced it. The increase in licensed hunter voter participation has been dramatic. And we can show you numbers of wins across the land where we have impacted elections. And again, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. And if I've recommended any candidates on this show, that was me personally. That wasn't Hunter Nation. And we push. I know these hunters, Ben. And again, for my detractors out there, members of the Michael Moore fan club, we'll try to get you a washcloth as well.
Oh, I'm sure.
For my detractors out there, you want to know why I'm so confident, Ben? I'm not confident because I think I'm great. I'm confident because I think other people are great. And those that want to claim I'm a horrible, racist, homophobic, sexist, hateful, whatever you want to call me, do you know how many times families have got a hold of me since the 1960s to take their dying son and daughter on their last wish in life? Do you know what those families had to do to vet me? If their little 7-year-old daughter or their little 6-year-old son wanted to go hunting with Ted Nugent before they died, is there a more demanding screening process in that emotional time? Is there? If I was a bad person, would they have called me? If I was a dangerous person, if I was a racist person or a homophobic person or a sexist person or a, I don't know, whatever. Do you know how many times I've done that? You know how many people have called me? I got a call right now that when I'm done with you, I'm calling a young man who's dying of brain cancer. Have you got a call like that? Did anybody call you this week? See, and I'm not saying I'm better than you. I'm saying that I have maybe a bigger mouth than you. And when I open this beautiful big mouth, truth, logic, and common sense comes out, which again is kryptonite to Michael Moore and his fan club. And I think Joe Biden is the current czar of the Michael Moore fan club. Maybe Hunter Biden. I think Hunter Biden might be the sacrificial lamb. I can't tell. But my point is that those that hate me, you know what you hate? You hate the soulfulness, the empathy, the compassion, the passion, the work ethic, the spirit, the true north moral compass that I really represent to somehow qualify to take these little boys and girls on their last wish in life. And when a Marine is dying on a bed, his mother calls and says before he dies, he wants to talk to you. So Ben, if I sound cocky, that's why. Because the best people in the world at the most difficult times of life have reached out to this old, goofy, smart-ass, loudmouth, caustic guitar player. Because even little Macon Lynn, 6 years old, just wanted to hear me play Fred Bear on a campfire before he died. And if I qualify for that, then my detractors are pure rot, because they don't look past the imagery and the Rolling Stone lies and the Huffington Post lies and the stories that lie about me and claim nasty, nasty stuff about me, all the nasty stuff that has been leveled at me, all lies. We could go down the list. I saw somebody sent me some liberal website that said I was busted for drug possession.
Ooh.
I've been militantly against substance abuse all my life. I've never touched a drug in my life. I don't take Tylenol. And they said that I was convicted of statutory rape. Really? What was that? What was that girl's name? I guess it was a girl. See, they're lies. So all the hate and lies against me are lies, but all the love and support for me are true. And if somebody has taken more dying children on their last wish in life, then give me a call, because I would like to meet you, because you must be a great person.
That supersedes
How's that?
everything. That supersedes everything. It just does.
It supersedes everything. Well, yeah, I got a big mouth and I play loud guitar and I wrote Wango Tango. So the kids understand what's meaningful and what's fun and what's not meaningful. And if I qualify for that, Ben, then I've got to adjust my halo getting in the room. And I didn't aspire to that, but my mom and dad disciplined me to be the best that I could be and to follow a true North Compass setting. So what I represent and what Dan Kelly could represent for Wisconsin is a true North Compass setting of constitutional self-evident truth and the best elements that bring the best quality of life. And this Janet Prokosewicz, she's a Joe Biden gangster, and she's against hunting. She's against science. She's against biology. She's against the Second Amendment. She's against the First Amendment. She thinks your statements have to be fact-checked by some Klansman. That Rosa Parks can't sit on that seat because some guy who wears his bedding on his head doesn't like the color of her skin. So that's the difference. I'm for freedom and judged by content of character. The other side is all about racism. And you get a job if you got colored skin and if you're a homosexual. The president actually said that.
All right, so we're already past our time. I want to just quickly touch on two things before I forget. I didn't know this until yesterday when Linda, by the way, Linda, she's just phenomenal.
All my team is the best. Everybody in my world are the best people in the world.
I love talking to her. She's such a sweetheart. And she sent me just a basic information about you when I put up like a little bio announcing you're going to be on today. And I didn't know this, that it changed, but the Spirit of the Wild television show is now on the Pursuit channel. I don't know what happened there.
34 years. It's been the top-rated hunting show for 34 years.
Yeah, and it's the most watched series on the Pursuit channel. What?
Yeah. It's on the Pursuit channel because now we're on 8 times a week, and we have more eyeballs and more families and more young kids. I'm an old guy. I'll be 75 this year.
No, you're not. Shut up.
I'll be 75 this year. If I had a little bit of sleep, I'd be downright handsome. My point is that the Spirit of the Wild, because of Mrs. Nugent and her Queen of the Forest segment, is just out of control popular with not just the hunting world, but with people from the rock and roll world and from every imaginable. We have a bunch of, left wingers. We have a bunch of, I don't know how to describe them, but people that don't agree with many of my constitutional self-evident truths. Sure. If you don't agree with me, it's not about I had a guy yesterday go, "Hey, I love your political views, Ted." And hey, hang on a second. Constitution isn't a view. Anyhow, my point is that Spirit of the Wild is on Pursuit Network now, and it's the top-rated show. And I give all the credit to Mrs. Nugent. Plus, I got to tell you, we talked about the nightly Nuge. Everybody should find the nightly Nuge. I think you can get it on my YouTube.
Yeah, it's on Facebook as well. It's literally, go to Facebook, Nightly Nuge. That's where I found it.
It's just a riot. And I have a Real America Voice Spirit Campfire, RealAmericaVoiceNews.com, I think. But Shemaine, my wonderful wife, the Queen of the Forest, Little Miss Dangerous, she is something else. She has a Shemaine Nugent Faith and Freedom Real America Voice show. There it is right there.
I found that because I didn't want to forget that, because you and I, last time we talked about it, you and I wouldn't be where we are without our wives.
Absolutely.
So I went to our
She is-
website or your website this morning to grab this. I want to ask if she's still. I looked and she's still doing it. Faith and Freedom. It's Sundays, 10 Eastern, 9 in the morning. You go to TedNugent.com. I think that's where I found it. Right, TedNugent.com.
Yep. Thank you
It's-
for that, Ben. Yeah,
of,
she's got-
of course. Again, no joke, man. We'd both probably be dead if it wasn't for our wives. So how in the world do we go through a show without saying something about them?
Absolutely. Good for you. That's very, very important. You're a man of intelligent priorities, my friend.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. That's a nice thing anyone said to me. Probably in about 2 years, with the exception of my wife.
Now, how long have you been married, Ben?
What's that?
How long have you been married?
Well, I was married in the past, and I was stupid. So I've known her since I was 14 or 15, but we reconnected about 8 years ago, and then got married a year later. So I think we've been married, I think 7 years ish
Good
now.
for you. You're on a wonderful adventure, and that's what it is. I love Shemaine so much; it's stupid. We
Isn't
have
that
a
awesome?
wonderful life, a wonderful family, and that's what this is all about. So, Wisconsin, if you know, life, liberty, and pursuit of real happiness is based on God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, Ten Commandments, Golden Rule, the Declaration of Independence, work ethic, putting your heart and soul into being the best that you can be, good over evil, law and order. If you believe in that stuff, then we are blood brothers. And I was going to say American blood brothers, but on my Real America Voice and on my Facebook and Instagram and Getter and
You're
Truth
freaking
Social,
everywhere.
I'm literally talking to people. I got a bunch of Happy St. Patrick's Day stuff today already from my friends in Ireland. So I'm the things that you and I believe in. Again, goodwill, decency, positive spirit, being the best that you can be, sacrificing and taking risk, not just for self, but for family and community and fellow man and the
Yes.
earth. And these are the guiding lights of a true North lifestyle. And it's not just America. I hear from people in France and Germany and Spain and Portugal and Ireland and Switzerland and all across Scandinavia. I hear from people all over the world because what I stand up and fight for isn't a Ted Nugent, opinion or hunch or a guesswork. It's a true North compass setting that is in all of us. And I feel really comfortable communicating with you. And I somewhat apologize for being so verbose, but when you have someone on, I suspect that you want to hear what they have to say.
You be you, man.
And I don't mean to dominate it, but these are critical times where, unfortunately, the U.S. government is against all the good stuff. There's not a bureaucracy we can trust. The FDA has poisoned our food and hired the communist Chinese to make our pharmaceuticals and our medicine. The USDA has poisoned our food, and they got the communist Chinese making our Roundup Ready seeds and our fertilizers. And if you want to get a foodborne illness, it'll have to say USDA on it. The CDC isn't about protecting our health. The FBI is a gangster organization. I mean, the ATF have admitted they take guns and drugs and cocaine and prostitutes while they're on our dime. I mean, I could go on and on. There's not a bureaucracy that any smart person could possibly trust. Who's in charge of our health? Dr. Fauci? This is what it's come to? So my suspicions, the founding fathers wanted every American to be just like me. They wanted us to pay attention. They wanted us to be suspicious of all authority. They want us to demand constitutional accountability from every one of our elected employees because we are the electing officials. We need to experiment in self-government. So Wisconsin, you can go to register and vote right now. Go to huntthevote.org or go to hunternation.org. If you're not a voting force for God, family, country, law, and order, then the enemies of America consider you an ally. So Wisconsin, I love Wisconsin. Thank you for all these years of support. Again, the Fred Bear song is a soundtrack for the families of Wisconsin. I'm so humbled and honored that my piece of music connects me with people like that. They've always fanned the flames of my American rock and roll dream. They've made Spirit of the Wild the #1 show on Pursuit again. I love the people of Wisconsin, but if you want to kill a baby when it's being born, and if you want to release rapists and murderers and stabbers, then you're the enemy not of just Ted Nugent, but you're the enemy of mankind. And we can fix this. Dan Kelly will stand up for the traditional values and make our streets safe and make Wisconsin a constitutional state again. So I consider myself a roving citizen of Wisconsin. I'll be back to rock and roll. I'll be back to hunt, which means the elected employees work for me in Wisconsin.
I was just thinking, I wonder, like, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, even though I'm trying to be, but I wonder, is it over under 15 minutes before Facebook and YouTube removes this video? Because I'm pretty much sure we hit every single topic that they don't want us to ever talk about. So that'll be interesting to find out.
If that's not anti-Americanism, I don't know. Censorship.
The biggest takeaway here, and you said it just a few minutes ago, I've never heard that before. The Constitution isn't a view. Supporting it's not a view. I've never heard that before, and it was just kind of, I don't know, that was interesting. It was such a simple thing, but I found it profound, and I'm going to remember that.
I think every school in America, we're graduating kids that can't write, can't spell, can't talk. They wouldn't know how to balance a checkbook. We're graduating them. I think that the one of the first steps, the number one step, is for people of spirit and conscience to vote, and vote their conscience, and vote the traditional values that make our lives safe and a strong military. Everything that's wrong with America we could fix just by good conservative families voting like an army. And I really think that in every school, from preschool up to probably the graduation of a law school and doctorate school, they should play Old Yeller. They should have an Old Yeller curriculum. They should have a Patriot curriculum. They should have a Braveheart curriculum. Those are not just movies. Those are documentaries of what kings and tyrants and emperors will do to you. We don't believe in kings and tyrants and emperors here in America. We believe in we the people hiring people to represent us based on the Constitution. Right now, Uncle Sam is what you want heartbreak. I'm convinced, and I will say it without hesitation. Uncle Sam is the enemy of America. Our government is currently the enemy of America. The examples, the evidence is limitless. Uncle Sam has opened the border for the communist Chinese chemical warfare of fentanyl, methamphetamine, as brought in by the gangsters and the devils of the Mexican drug cartels. You know, the guys that Barack Obama and Eric Holder sent guns to. That they are killing Americans worse than Vietnam with fentanyl through the border that Uncle Sam refuses to secure. That's all you need to know. And if anyone would like to debate me, call 1-800-NUMBNUT, and Michael Moore will explain why hygiene is superfluous.
Numbnut. Got it.
1-800-NUMBNUT.
Numbnut. Yeah, I wrote it down. There's not a lot that scares me in this world, but fentanyl is starting to. That really freaks me out. That's that's a whole other thing. We could talk for another hour. Ted, you're welcome on anytime. You're a good man. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Ben. God bless truth, logic, and common sense. I give you the Truth, Logic, and Common Sense Lifetime Achievement Award, and give my love to your family, your wonderful wife, and everybody in Wisconsin. I really do love the heart and soul of real Wisconsin, and I hope that we can keep it in the asset column by the hunting families being sure you register and vote. That's the determinating factor right now. Ben, thank you very much.
Special thank you to our guest today, rock and roll legend, hunting enthusiast, and Hunter Nation spokesman, Ted Nugent, for joining us for a chat today. I'll see you on Tuesday when Sheriff Fitzgerald and I will be back for our latest Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy show. So until then, thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.